Hello and welcome to Washington Union Station. Today we are riding with MARC, the Maryland Area Regional Commuter Network from here up to Baltimore, Maryland. Washington Union Station is gorgeous. Built back in 1907, Union Station serves as the southern terminus for the Northeast Corridor and is home to 10 Amtrak intercity and long-distance services. The station also serves 5 commuter lines, 2 of which belong to the Virginia Railway Express or VRE, with the other 3 belonging to MARC. By far the most beautiful feature of Union Station is the main hall. Once the waiting and ticketing area, the hall has found new life as an event space, in addition to being an incredible architectural masterpiece. Unfortunately, we can't hang around here too long as the boarding announcement is made for our train up north. Checking the departure board just beyond the hall shows that our train is departing from Gate C on track 16. Following the signs around the station, we make our way through the crowds of people to Gate C. Before we can head out to board, we need a ticket. Tickets for MARC can be purchased either online through the MARC Charm Pass app, onboard trains from the conductor, or from the ticket machines around the station. Using the ticket machines is super easy, and after a few taps, we have our ticket. One-way travel between DC and Baltimore costs $9, which is comparable to Amtrak services between the two cities. With the ticket now in hand, we can head out to track 16 for boarding. Oh yeah, also, Washington Union Station has the most ridiculous speed limit signs at just 3 miles per hour. Setting out on track 16 is MARC Penn Line Train 536, our ride up to Baltimore. Making our way towards the front of the train, we can climb aboard and head upstairs to find an empty row for the journey north. Before our train rolls out of Washington, D.C., let's take a look at our route up to Baltimore. Our journey begins heading east out of Washington, D.C., crossing out of the District of Columbia and into Maryland. The tracks then turn further northeast, passing the suburban communities of Cheverly and Westgate. Our train picks up speed through Glendale, cruising past Bowie and Midland Park at 100 miles an hour. Crossing through Odenton, we reach the outskirts of the Baltimore metro area, making our only intermediate stop at Baltimore-Washington International Airport. From there, our route crosses the Patapsco River, passing through Halethorpe and Arbutus before curving through downtown to arrive at Baltimore Penn Station. We'll cover a total of 41 miles between Washington and Baltimore today, with a travel time of 43 minutes. Only a few minutes after getting seated, our train departs Washington, D.C., beginning our journey north. Seating on MARC comes in 2 layouts, airline-style seats in sets of 2 and groups of 4. We'll start out by taking a look at the latter. The groups of 4 afford around 8 inches between my knees and the next seat, although there's limited space to stretch out beneath each row. Despite the considerably larger space beneath each seat, I would find it hard to believe that 2 adults could sit across from one another. The seats themselves are pretty comfortable, with a decent amount of cushioning on the bottom and back of each seat. Armrests are included on the ends of each row, plus one in between the seats for some added separation. They include a bit of padding, but the leather has begun to crack from regular use. Other amenities are limited, but MARC does provide luggage racks above both sides of the train. That being said, their close proximity to the ceiling above makes them really only usable for small and medium-sized bags. Heading out of DC, our train passes Virginia Railway Express Train 333 as it gets ready to pull into Union Station ahead of its trip out to Manassas. The VRE is the only other commuter line operating out of Washington, D.C., and serves communities south of D.C. to Fredericksburg and west to Manassas. If you want to see what riding on one of the lesser-known commuter lines in the Northeast is like, then check out our journey on VRE down to Fredericksburg. Links will be in the top right or in the description below. Continuing northeast, we pass by the coach yard and the beginning of Amtrak's Ivy City maintenance facility. Here, MARC, VRE, and Amtrak store and service their coaches and locomotives, with a few full trains waiting to be sent out on their next assignment. Leaving the DC metro area behind, our train picks up speed, cruising along the high iron at 90 miles an hour. Moving to the row behind us, we can take a look at MARC's airline-style seats. These seats offer around 4 to 5 inches between my knees and the seat in front, which is fairly generous for regular commuter rail coaches. There's also space beneath the next seat to stretch out or store personal belongings. Each seat includes a seatback pocket, but it's only large enough for the safety information card. The backs of each seat are padded, allowing passengers to rest their heads on the seatback. Unfortunately, there are no outlets on the next row or anywhere on the train. As with the groups of 4, each row includes 2 padded armrests on either end, plus 1 in the middle. As we cruise up the northeast corridor, let's take a quick look at some stats about our train. Taking us up to Baltimore this afternoon is MARC Penn line train number 536 and is driven by MPI MP36PH-3C locomotive number 19. Each MP36PH is powered by one of EMD's 645 V16 engines, producing 3,600 horsepower. Each locomotive is rated for a top speed of 102 miles per hour, and with track speeds on the corridor reaching 125, our locomotive can open the taps to hit that 100 mile per hour barrier. MARC trains vary in length and consist, with our train this afternoon made up of 6 Kawasaki Mark III coaches. These coaches were the first bi-level coaches operated by MARC and were delivered between 1999 and 2001. These coaches were then succeeded by Bombardier's multi-level fleet termed MARC IVs in 2014. In addition to the bi-level fleet, MARC also operates a set of single-level coaches called MARC IIA and IIB, which were manufactured by Sumitomo and Nippon Sharyo in the late 80s and early 90s. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It's totally free and it really helps support the channel. If you want to go the extra mile with your support, then check out the channel's Patreon or become a channel member. If you want your name in the video, access to exclusive weekly posts, and even the opportunity to vote on future videos, then click the links in the top right or in the description below to learn more. Bathrooms on MARC's bi-level fleet are located on the intermediate landing between the upper and lower levels. Stepping inside, we're met with a standard but spacious facility. All bathrooms on MARC are accessible, and this one is no exception. The sink works but could use a boost of water pressure, with a third full bottle of soap off to the side. Interestingly though, the soap was actually an Amtrak bottle, which goes to show the supply sharing around the network. There was also plenty of toilet paper, but no paper towels, as MARC has opted for an electric hand dryer. 2 120-volt outlets are located next to the sink and appear to be in good working condition, below which is the elongated toilet flush lever. The other half of the bathroom isn't anything special, with plenty of space for passengers with disabilities. The only really strange feature of the bathroom is the half window along the wall. Stepping out of the bathroom, we find the other half of said window. My best guess for the split window is that the bathroom wasn't originally meant to be as large as it is, and when MARC decided to add more space, it meant half of the window was in the bathroom. The lower level is almost identical to the upper, but with more airline rows than groups of 4. Our ride to Baltimore is interrupted only by a stop at Baltimore-Washington International Airport. MARC's Penn line operates 2 main service types, local and express. Local services stop at all stations on the line, while express trains like ours stop at only 1 or 2 stations between Washington and Baltimore. Local services usually take around an hour to complete the ride between DC and Baltimore, whereas express services save 20 minutes, crossing the 41 miles in around 40 minutes. Looking forward, we reach the last door in our train, as indicated by this handy sign showing car number and location. Just beyond the vestibule is our locomotive MP36PH-3C number 19, bouncing away as we cruise up the corridor. MARC's main locomotive may be the MP36, however the Penn line does see regular service from a rather special locomotive, the Bombardier-Alstom HHP-8. The name HHP-8 derives from the high horsepower output, hence HHP, while the 8 references the 8,000 horsepower output of each locomotive. HHP-8s were purchased by MARC and Amtrak in 1996 for use along the Northeast Corridor. For Amtrak, the HHP-8s were meant to haul intercity services along the corridor and supplement the AEM 7s, allowing them to retire the GE E60 locomotives. For MARC, the locomotives were a new source of motive power for their Penn line services, upping train speeds to a maximum of 125. Unfortunately, the HHP-8s were notoriously unreliable and were eventually retired by Amtrak in the early 2010s in favor of the new Siemens ACS 64s. MARC, however, did something else. Instead of following in the footsteps of Amtrak like reports had suggested, MARC decided to refurbish their HHP-8s beginning in 2017, replacing all of the faulty equipment that had plagued the locomotives for their first decade of service. Since then, the HHP-8s have run regularly on the Penn line and are the last surviving fully operational HHP-8 locomotives. Almost exactly 40 minutes after departing Washington, D.C., our train rounds the final turns into Baltimore Penn Station, the coaches bouncing around through the tunnels below downtown. Rolling to a stop, the doors open and we can step out into Baltimore. Walking around to the front of the train, we get our first and only look at the locomotive that brought us here, the front of which bears a bit of damage from some form of impact. The doors soon close and Locomotive 19 powers up, pulling train 536 out of the station and on towards Perryville. Sitting on the next track over is locomotive number 80, one of MARC's relatively new SC-44 Charger locomotives. These locomotives entered service back in 2017, replacing the aging AEM 7 fleet. The platforms at Baltimore's Penn Station have clearly seen better days. There's rust everywhere and the paint is flaking off of every possible surface. Hopefully someday soon the platforms will see a long overdue refresh, but for now the focus is on the main station building. While we're taking a look around the platforms, Amtrak Carolinian number 80 pulls in, led by ACS 64 number 619. One of only a handful of long-distance intercity trains, the Carolinian runs from New York's Penn Station south through Washington, continuing on through Virginia and North Carolina to Charlotte. As Train 80 leaves Baltimore behind, we can head up into the main station building where we'll bring today's video to an end. Next week, we'll be back in the air, for real this time, to fly from Atlanta to London Heathrow on one of Delta's Boeing 767s. If you're new around here, I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button down below. It's totally free, and it really helps support the channel. There's a lot more incredible content on the way, so stick around if you want to see more. I also want to give a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. If you too want your name in the video or just want to support the channel in more ways than one, then head on over to the links in the description below. But anyways, that's all I have for today. Thanks for riding with me, and I'll see you in the next one.